Hello, 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 and welcome. I am Shane Moore, and I will be your host tonight. We will be talking about the real matrix, reasons we may be living in a simulation. Interesting and seemingly outrageous, but not really. We'll get down to the nuts and bolts of how this could be true. We'll be discussing the simulation theory that we may be living in a simulated reality similar to the 1999 movie The Matrix. And their sole purpose, mission, was to escape the Matrix. It's been said by people like Elon Musk that chances that we are living in base reality are like billions to one. They're pretty sure that this is a simulation. Anyway, going to take a short break. I'll be taking your calls or chat, your comments, questions via our live chat, or call in. The show number 903-956-0055. Outside the U.S., just add 1 to that. And feel free to call in. Questions or comments. We will be right back and get started. So don't go anywhere.
When someone don't help you, when someone don't help you through the rain, when feelings don't matter, and everything's nothing but a game. Just know that I'm with you. Just know that I'm with you through it all. And I'm gonna be there whenever you win or if you fall. What you're given, but it's never too late to spread your wings.
And I am back. Hope everybody's doing well. Yes, tonight, believe it or not, there is actual people, scientists. Hey, Patricia, glad you joined us. There are scientists and very esteemed, highly esteemed people like Elon Musk, Richard Branson, who are billionaires, by the way, and they're really putting a lot of money into this to find out if we are in fact living in a simulation, in a computer simulation, just like the Matrix. And it seems far-fetched until you really think about it, and the more you think about it, it becomes feasible. If it's feasible, then it's possible, and that's it just opens up a lot of questions, and it's like how long has this been going on? And is this a one-time thing? It says in the Bible, in the beginning. Well, if this is true, or if this is a valid theory, then you could very well ask, is the Bible, as far as Scripture, or the Quran, or the Hindu ancient scriptures, the Vedas, and are they computer programs, or is history as we know it just a blend of different files? One thing that I look at words and languages and numbers, and it's there's numbers, there's words that just pop up all over the place, and it seems like it seems like that there's a message in those numbers. Not to sound schizophrenic, I may be, but but it's like you see certain numbers, you see certain words, and it's like that there is an intelligence, a super intelligence, if you want to call it that, God, the Creator. In this case, you would say the programmer, the main programmer. Are they trying to give you or give us a message? Not mankind as a whole, but to each person, they trying to give us messages with these seemingly coincidental numbers and words that pop up, or deja vu, dreams, and of course, I mean, we've all heard the phrase "life is a dream within a dream." Could it be a program within a program? And that's one thing about the Matrix movies, the Matrix trilogy. And for those of you that haven't seen the Matrix, whoa. Please watch it, because it will blow your mind. It will open doors that will help you to expand your thinking, because it's just nonstop. It really made me think. Of course, I mean, I had been thinking about things like that before I saw the movie. When I saw the movie, I sat there and I was just in complete awe, and actually watched it again. Bought another ticket and watched it again. and was just blown away. I I have always felt like, as far back as I can remember, that looking around, talking to different people, I would often wonder, and I still do, are we really here? It's just something that within me that I question that we're really here. It's like, sure, our bodies are here, but are we really here? And it seems to me like that we're somewhere else, and that just like in the Matrix, the people that thought they were living in the real world, they were in pods, being used as a source of energy for the machines. What were the machines? They were artificial intelligence. And now we have, I read an article this morning. This is from Techsplore.com. Columbia University School of Engineering and Applied Science says a step closer to self-aware machines. Engineers create a robot that can imagine itself. Which means that it's sentient. It has a mind. Hey, baby, there's Mona. For those of you that are new to the show listening, Mona is my fiance. She's on the chat, so welcome. It says, robots that are self-aware have been science fiction fodder for decades, and now we may finally be getting closer. Humans are unique. Now get that. Humans are unique. They should say not anymore. In being able to imagine themselves, to picture themselves in future scenarios, such as walking along the beach on a warm sunny day. Humans can also learn by revisiting past experiences and reflecting on what went right or wrong. While humans and animals acquire and adapt their self-image over their lifetime, most robots still learn using human-provided simulators or models, or by time-consuming trial and error. Robots have not learned simulate themselves in a. Excuse me. This is kind of garbled here. Robots have not learned how to simulate themselves the way humans do. Okay, whatever that means. Yeah, that's completely. The words are just not in order. But anyway, that's what it was saying. Columbia engineering researchers have made a major advance in robotics by creating a robot that learns what it is from scratch, with zero prior knowledge of physics, geometry, or motor dynamics. Initially, the robot does not know if it is a spider, a snake, an arm. It has no clue what its shape is. After a brief period of babbling, and within about a day of intensive computing, their robot creates a self-simulation. Now, just like the Matrix, those of you that have seen the Matrix, Neo doesn't know hand-to-hand combat. He doesn't know how to fight. I mean, he's just, they put him in the chair, they hook him up, and the guy that runs the ship, he says, okay, he says, I'm going to, put in for, I'm going to download Kung Fu. And Neo says, I'm going to learn Kung Fu. And he says, just, kick back. So he does. And this is not only Kung Fu, this is Kung Fu, this is Wing Chun, Taekwondo, Aikido, every martial art you can think of. And after 10 hours downloading this into his mind, Neo opens his eyes and Morpheus is there, and he says, "I know Kung Fu." And Morpheus says, "Show me." Next thing you know, they're in this dojo and wearing the martial art. Hey Georgia, glad you joined us. They're in this dojo wearing their martial art, attire or whatever, gis, and so they start sparring, and it's very intense. And one thing about that is Morpheus beats him, and he says, "How did I beat you?" And Neo is breathing so hard. I mean, he's just out of breath, and he's struggling to get up, and he says, "Because you're too strong, you're too fast." And he says, "Do you believe that my muscles have anything to do with how I beat you in this place?" And Neo looks at him confused, and Morpheus said, "Do you think that's air you're breathing?" Now, that woke him up to, hey, you know what? We're in a simulation. You're not even breathing air. You just think you are. You just think you just think that I'm faster. You just think I'm stronger. Truth is, and he tells him later, he says, Neo is still struggling, and he says, "You're faster than this." He says, "Don't think you are, know you are." There's a difference. There's a difference between thinking and knowing. And and then he says, "Stop trying to hit me and hit me." Now that's profound. I mean, it is so profound. Stop trying to hit me and hit me. Seems real simple. But that's just it. I believe that the way, if this is true and we are in a simulation, that the way to escape the simulation and get to true reality, base reality, heaven, whatever you want to call it, paradise, whatever you want to call it, is to stop thinking we are enough, to stop thinking that we are, able and know we are, to stop trying to hit the target and hit the target. Just like Nike says, just do it. Just do it. Because trying and thinking often get in the way. Now you think about this. When you think about doing something, especially something that's the least bit stressful, your mind will give you a million reasons on how you're going to fail. It's just human nature. And when you're trying to do something, when you say, "I'll try," you're setting yourself up for possible failure. When you do it, it negates all possibility of failure. You're going to do it. Patricia, you say, "By the way, Shane, do you have any idea if we ever truly lived in the real world or always in a simulation?" That's a good question. If reincarnation is true, I think that we may have, but as far as right now, I think that we've probably always been in a simulation. And that's a really good question, because you think about, if reincarnation is true, if it does take place, then who's to say that that your past lives weren't simulations? And that's huge. I mean, it really is. And then, George, you say, "Oh, time for me to watch it again." Oh man, I've watched it so many times, and every time I watch it, I learn something that new that I didn't, see before. And truth is the Wachowski brothers made the Matrix, trilogy. After that, they made one more movie, V for Vendetta, and then they didn't make any more movies. I mean, that was just it. And that's unheard of in Hollywood. I mean, gosh, these guys could be billionaires. I mean, the Matrix is still making money. So is V for Vendetta, but the Matrix is the big one. And, many people, they're not aware of this, but, Keanu Reeves is in the Guinness Book of World Records for the highest paid actor for a movie, or movie trilogy. He was paid $147 million to be Neo for 3 movies. That's a lot of money. And yes, they did. And one of the Wachowski brothers since then has had a sex change, and I think his name is Laura or Lorna Wachowski. It's a woman now. I mean, yeah. But man, you talk about the symbolism, the metaphorical language, everything in all 3 movies, actually, for the Animatrix, which is an animation. Also watch that, because that's the first, really. It's the first one that tells about the different things. But it's those movies are all 3. There is nothing that is in those movies that is out of place. Everything is there for a reason. Every single thing. And trust me, I've watched it so many times. I mean, I've paused it down to the graffiti on the walls, and every single thing is there for a reason, and it is sending a huge message. And it's you have spirituality, you have Christianity, you have Buddhism, you have Hinduism, just all different kinds of information on your spirit, and it's like Neo goes to see the Oracle, which is this older woman, kind of like a grandma type, and when he's waiting to see her, he meets this little bald-headed boy, spoon boy, who's sitting there looking at a spoon, and he's bending it with his mind. The spoon's just like a noodle, and he hands the spoon to Neo, and Neo's like staring at the spoon, and the spoon's like, "I'm not moving for you." And the little boy just looks at him, and he says, it just gives you chills. He says, "Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible." He says, "Only try to realize the truth." And Neo says, "What truth?" And the little boy says, "There is no spoon." And then you'll see it's not the spoon that bends. It is only yourself. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I mean, wow. That is profound. Little boy says, do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Okay? Well, what's he saying? He's saying don't try and bend the spoon. As long as you're trying, you're never going to do it. Just do it. Bypass the logical part of your mind, because as long as you try to fit that into logic with how we've been programmed, how we've been indoctrinated. See, your mind has been hijacked, so to speak. I mean, that's how I feel. The mind has been hijacked. We've been taught, you can't move things with your mind. If you're going to bend a spoon, you have to do it with your hands. You can't do it just by your mind, by mental processes. So as long as you're trying to do that, you're fighting against rules that have been set up within your mind. And what the little boy's saying is bypass all that. And he says, only try to realize the truth. What truth? There is no spoon. And wow. Truth is there's really not. In that movie also, Neo makes his jump, which everybody fails. And he fails. And he falls and he hits the concrete and bounces. And he bleeds. And he wipes the blood from his lip and he says, I'm bleeding. He said, is this real? And Morpheus says, your mind makes it real. Okay. Einstein proved that there is what's called the wave and particle in atomic structure. That atoms are a wave, they're waves, until there's an observer, until you look and observe the matter, whatever you want to call it, that it really doesn't exist until you look at it. Okay, what is that saying? Same thing the Matrix says. Your mind makes it real. Your consciousness makes it real. And I hope that makes sense to you. As long as you're not observing it, it's a wave. They're all waves. All the molecules, subatomic particles are waves. When you look at it, they become particles. So that's how that when you hear about supposed spiritual teachers that could walk through walls or levitate, do things like that, that's what they're doing. They have realized that this is really hard to describe, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. I think that they have realized that we are in a simulation. Not believe we are, but they know we are. And there's a difference between believing or thinking that you are and knowing that you are. And so they realize that their physical body is nothing but a what? An avatar. It's just a character. And even in the Bible, and I'm not just using the Bible, I would use other spiritual texts, but I just haven't read enough of them. But it's in the Bible, there's Peter, Paul. They both talk about when we put off this earthly tabernacle. It's like they're saying when we put off this skin suit, we will be free. Well, if you take that literally, it's like saying, well, when I get out of this avatar, when I get out of this this character, or whatever you call a Sims character, I don't know I don't know the terms or whatever, but it's very much like The Sims. Okay. Now think about when you download the app and you start the game or whatever. Think about what if the programmers gave the Sims characters the ability to, and I'm saying if, what if they gave them the ability to think or to become, sentient. And just imagine that there's one, Sims character that says, gosh, I think this is being, that this entire world that I'm in is being controlled by someone. Maybe not even a programmer, but someone playing a game. And what if you were the programmer? What if you were the one in charge? And you saw this character in the game or the app or whatever you want to call it break away and start going around telling all the other characters, hey, this is what's up. Yeah, that would be like, that'd be big time. Patricia, you say, well, if we are in a simulation like The Sims, at least I'm not perpetually late for work like the actual Sims. Right. And, but that's a good point too, is if that's true, if this is a simulation, then that would explain things like time dilation and where time seemingly stands still. You leave and it's like 15 minutes has passed. You go back to your friends and they say, where have you been the last 3 hours? Time passes faster when you're having fun. Passes very slow when you're bored out of your mind or you're doing something that you don't necessarily enjoy doing. But this says, after a brief period of babbling, and within about a day of intensive computing, their robot creates a self-simulation. The robot can then use the self-simulator internally to contemplate and adapt to different situations, handling new tasks as well as detecting and repairing damage in its own body. The work is published today in Science Robotics. To date, robots have operated by having a human explicitly model the robot. But if we want robots to become independent to adapt quickly to scenarios unforeseen by their creators, then it's essential that they learn to simulate themselves, says Hod Lipson, professor of mechanical engineering and director of the Creative Machines Lab, where the research was done. So that was an article today. I mean, just like recent, very, very fresh article. And so it's like they're talking about AI, artificial intelligence. It's going to take over. My question is has it already taken over? And this is gonna really rock the boat, but it's a valid question. I mean, you have to ask yourself: is our reality, if it's a simulation, then it's being run, it's being programmed by a programmer? Could that programmer be artificial intelligence? Could it be a quantum computer? And that brings us to the Church-Turing thesis, that at the heart of every universe is a quantum computer. Yeah. And that theory was made back in the late 40s. George, you say we would already be AI. Very good point. Very good point. My next question was going to be, if we're in a simulation, if we are in a simulation, that would mean what I've always thought, that your body, we look at our bodies as being, as not being artificial. But if we're in a simulation, we would not be looking for AI, because we are AI. We're just a very advanced AI, very advanced artificial intelligence. And our bodies, I've always thought this. I even told my doctor, I said, it's like when I come to see you, I said, it's like taking a car into the mechanic. I said, to get the oil changed and get the like a tune-up or whatever. And he says, yeah. He said, that's pretty accurate. And he said, that's pretty much what goes on. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I see it. Is yes. I mean, it's a living thing, but that's the same thing that artificial intelligence would say. Yes, I'm a living being, but are they? It's a matter of perspective. I mean, it's a matter of truth, and truth is, I just don't see our bodies as being. I don't know how to explain it, but I just see our bodies as being a machine, very advanced, but nevertheless a machine. And what happens to all machines? They break down. They just simply break down in time. And and then again, Elon Musk says we may live in a simulation. He says that there may not be a way to tell if we're actually living in a simulation or not. And when they're searching for base reality, I mean, how would you know when you're in real reality? Is there even such a thing? I don't know. That's still up for debate, but it's really, really makes you think, because movies like Inception, Dark City, and again the Matrix trilogy brings forth the question: is it possible that the world is just a computer simulation? One thing too is there's been accounts, there's been stories, philosophers as far back as Plato, thousands of years ago, that speculated that what we see may not be real at all. Now, Plato and Socrates and men like that, of course, I mean, they didn't know the modern day language, of course, but they knew that something just wasn't right. Now, how do they know that? I have no idea. But nevertheless, they knew it. Just like, Plato talks about the cave. Talks about the people that are in the cave, and they see these big these giants, or they see these monsters or whatever. And so they stay in the cave because they don't want to deal with the monsters. And the monsters are nothing but their reflection on the wall. So they're trapped, by their own fear when they have nothing to fear. I mean, it's themselves. They're looking in a mirror, and they're afraid of what they see. And this is Plato, thousands of years ago. Computers now process huge amounts of data, and some of the most intense productive tasks involve simulations. Simulations consider multiple variables and use artificial intelligence to analyze them and examine outcomes. Some simulations are games, some are models of real-life situations, such as the spread of disease. Some are history simulators, and some can be games like Sid Meier's Civilization, or can mimic the real-life growth of society over time. So, that's how simulations run now, but computers keep getting faster. Processing power has doubled periodically for decades, and computers 50 years from now may well be millions of times more powerful than any today. Well, from that article this morning, yeah, it's not going to be 50 years. Matter of fact, they were talking about that it may be 5 to 10 years. I don't even think it's going to be that long. I mean, it's on the doorstep. And you know as well as I do that before when we hear about something, when it's made public, it's something that they have been doing for years. So I think that it's already here. Quantum computing, that is. And they're just working out the kinks. Because it's, I don't know, but that's just how I feel. And it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that time is speeding up. I think that it's just, and that's another thing that I've always said, is if time did speed up, would we know it? How would we know it? If time were to slow down, how would we know it? Because we measure time by sunrise, sunset. Well, what if the sunrise, sunset, what if everything that we measure time by were to speed up? Would we know? Of course not. We just go along with it because we measure time by sunrise, sunset, measure time by clocks. So we wouldn't really know. And truthfully, time doesn't exist. I mean, it's like Einstein said. He says time is an illusion, albeit a persistent one. So time is basically the distance or space between point A, point B, right? Time's space-time. You can't have time without space. You can't have space without time. So if time doesn't exist, then neither does space. So if space-time doesn't exist, then how does reality exist? Well, it doesn't unless it's a simulation. And in the Matrix, Morpheus, he says, or Neo asked, Morpheus, he said, so this isn't real. And Morpheus says, what is real? He said, if you determine what is real by what you can see, taste, smell, touch, he says, that is just electrical and, chemical, biochemical, he says, things happening within your body, within your brain. He said, that's not proof that something is real. And Neil just looks at him, and he's like, wow, I never thought of it that way. Well, neither did I until I saw the movie. I'm like, wow, that's pretty correct. I mean, that's, yeah. So when you look at it like that, it's like, all right, well, if the programmers not only programmed the simulation, but they programmed us. They programmed us to when we experienced, certain things, that certain chemicals would be released in our bodies, to that when we touch a hot stove, it burns us. We pull our hand back, when it's not real, but in the simulation it is real because our minds, our consciousness makes it real. Now, you've probably seen or you've heard about people that could walk on hot coals and not be burned, or lift buses off of their child or something like that. How do you explain that? There's been accounts of people that could swallow hot coals and it didn't affect them, and some people that can drink poison, doesn't hurt them. And I'm not talking about the hillbilly redneck preachers and that are dancing with snakes and everything, and they're like, the Lord will protect me, and they snake says, we'll see about that, and sinks his teeth into them, and it's like, I don't know, I guess I'm just sick because I can't stop laughing when that happens. It's like, man, if you're going to dance with a snake, I mean, just to show off, and, yeah. They're like, well, Paul in the Bible got bit by a snake, and just shook it off. Well, yeah, and it says he was gathering wood. He didn't do it on purpose. There's a difference. He wasn't showing off like, look how holy I am, and but there are people that have been bitten by snakes, poisonous snakes. And nothing happened to them. And so it's like, okay, how does that work? How do some people do superhuman, feats of, I don't know, strength? There's been documented accounts of people that, like a long time ago, well, not that long ago, but like in the 1920s, 1930s, or whatever. That, of course, I mean, there's no proof to actually back it up, but it's like there's been documentation of people that would drink molten lead, actually drink it, and it didn't burn them, and they suffered no ill effects. So it's like the only way that could happen, the only way that well, just like Jesus walking on the water, or anything like that. The only way that could happen is if this is a simulated reality. The only thing is those people, we would call them spiritual masters or whatever. They're working outside the laws and the rules of the simulation. Why is that? How do they do that? Well, they know it's a simulation. So, and their consciousness, their knowledge that it is a simulation, actually is stronger somehow than the simulation itself. And that's why that when someone like that comes along, that they're persecuted. It would be just like us. I mean, think about being a programmer, and you have this avatar, you've got this character, and he goes rogue, or she goes rogue, and she's telling everybody, hey, do this, do that. What's going to happen? Well, your app or your program, it's going to crash. And when you've got so much time and you've got so much wrapped up in something as big as the world, with 7 billion living people, not to mention the billions that have already died, that's a lot to lose. So when someone like that comes along, they're automatically persecuted, or killed, or made an example of. Anyway, better computers would bring much bigger and better computer simulators, including history simulators. If computers get powerful enough, they would create history simulations so real that the self-aware beings within them would have no idea that they were part of a program. Now, it's like Agent Smith in The Matrix. He says, he tells, Morpheus, he says, have you ever just looked at it? Have you ever just stopped and just looked at how grand it is? He said, all these people, like 99% of the population, are walking around oblivious that they're prisoners. And Smith is kind of funny because he says, I hate this place. I have to get out. It's the smell. And that just cracks me up every time. It's the smell. He says, humans are a disease and we are the cure. So Smith would be like an antivirus because what he said was right. I mean, he's not lying. He says humans are like a virus. Or he says humans move from one place to another. He says, and where they go, they destroy all the natural resources. Does that sound familiar? They destroy everything. And he says, you know what else does that? A virus. Computer virus. So what if we are in a simulation and we are in fact viruses? We just don't know it. Another possibility. Because it's kind of human nature to destroy, to use natural resources. And, it's sad. It really is. Okay, it says, do you think that's too far out there? Harvard's Odyssey supercomputer, which is in existence today, can simulate 14 billion years in only a few months. Harvard's Odyssey supercomputer can simulate 14 billion years in only a few months. Yeah, Patricia, I hate that too. It's true. But don't hate yourself, because it's like that's human nature. And if it's human nature and we're in a simulation, then we've been programmed. We've been given, you've heard the term born in sin. Well, how can an innocent baby be born into sin unless they're pre-programmed? And, whatever you want to call it, the human condition or the original sin has infected them or whatever, I don't buy that. I see it that they've been programmed a certain way to do certain things. And people call it human nature. What if it's programming? Okay, that was the first reason why that we could be living in a simulation, is ancestor simulators. Number 9, if someone can, they will. Okay, so it may be possible to create a universe inside a computer, but would it be moral? Humans are complex beings with feelings and relationships. Wouldn't there be something wrong in creating a whole fake world of them? Wouldn't the responsibility for every action in that universe fall on our shoulders? And wouldn't it be too much for us to bear? Maybe, but that doesn't matter. Because to some people, the idea of running a simulation would be just too tempting. And even if, for whatever reason, history simulators were illegal, it would just take a single person to run one and create our reality. It would take just one person who would consider the matter no more significant than a game of The Sims. And someone said, and I quote, what if we find out that God is a 14-year-old computer whiz? Wow. If we're in a simulation, that's really not a dumb question. That's a valid question. What if? People may also have good reasons for creating such simulators beyond just entertainment. Humanity could be facing death, forcing scientists to create our world as a massive diagnostic test. The simulation would help them find out what went wrong with their real world and figure out how to save themselves. Yep. And it's like the Patricia, you say he better at least use deodorant, or I swear to God, I'm going to be pissed. Yeah, me too. Um, and it's like you can ask yourself, um, what, how, how you would, feel if you were running a simulation with 7 billion characters, not to mention, like I said, the billions that have died, and you're doing all this. How would you do it? Well, it would take something like a quantum computer that would eventually um, run itself. I mean, program itself. I don't think that it would be a human. It might have started out as a human, with human programming, but then became sentient, and just like the movies, just like the Terminator with Skynet, just like the Matrix with artificial intelligence. Number 8, visible flaws. If a simulation is advanced enough, those inside wouldn't recognize it as a simulation at all. If you were to grow a brain in a vat and manipulate it with stimuli, it wouldn't know it's in a vat. Now, that's what I was saying before, is I've always wondered if we're really here. The truth is, I think we're somewhere else. I think that this is a dream within a dream. Now, not that I'm going to go out and jump off a building and find out. No. But I think that that's a valid point, something to definitely think about. It would assume itself a living, breathing, active person. But even advanced simulations can have flaws, right? Wouldn't we notice some imperfections, some glitch in the Matrix? Maybe we do see such glitches in our everyday lives. The Matrix offered an example of deja vu when something seems inexplicably familiar. The simulation may be skipping like a scratched CD. Supernatural elements like ghosts or miracles could also be glitches. According to simulation theory, people really do witness these phenomena, and they do so because of bugs in the simulation's code. I very much believe that. I also believe that that what gives a lot of proof that we're in a simulation is the fact that physicists, scientists, they're talking about these other realities, and they're endless realities, parallel worlds. And it says, they're right next to us. And on the other side of that is another and another and another. It's like files. It's like programs that are just stacked, or programs that are placed in order. Supernatural elements like ghosts or miracles could also be glitches. According to simulation theory, people really do witness such phenomena because of the bugs in the code. The internet offers plenty of evidence of these glitches. Keep your mind and eyes open, and maybe you'll see some for yourself. Well, I know that people have, and people do, and people will. You will see things that just don't make sense, and they don't fit in the rules of our physics. And when that happens, hey, it could be proof that we're not in Kansas anymore. That Kansas has gone bye-bye. And that was also in the Matrix. Cypher, he tells Neo, he says, buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye. Patricia, you say, would a near-death experience perhaps fit in the idea of a glitch? What do you think? I think it would. Yes, I think it would. that would definitely be something that would be a glitch, or yes, because people would see beyond the veil. I think some dreams, or people that throughout history, think about it. Those spiritual people, those spiritual giants, spiritual masters that have had visions, and they write their visions down, they make their visions public, and they suffer for it every time. It's like there's not been many, none actually that I know of, that have made their visions true, or their true visions, what they have really seen, that have made them public and not suffered for it. And it's like the powers that be, or the programmers, they want to silence anyone who tries to do that. Very good, Patricia. Nostradamus, yes. Okay. Now that is that's a huge point, and a good name that you brought up, because Nostradamus was a French seer, and foretold a lot of things, and was from southern France. And as many of you know, I've been talking a lot about southwestern France, Rennes-le-Château, which is a very mystic place, in the surrounding area. And Nostradamus happens to be from a little village, a little town, not far from Rennes-le-Château. And I will get to that when we come back. But I'm going to take a short break, be right back. So just stay put. Be back in 3 minutes. And I am back. So, yeah, that's Nostradamus. Was born in southwestern France, which I've been talking about Rennes Chateau, the mysterious little village in southwestern France where a lot of paranormal activity goes on. It's the most naturally magnetic place on Earth. They think that there's a large iron object, like huge iron object or something, that's buried there. Not sure what it is, but it's it pulls. There's a pull there, but no, you didn't. But there's time glitches, time dilation. People report leaving their friends, going into the woods for, they think, 15 minutes. They come back and their friends are, where have you been the last 3 hours? They look at their watch and, they can't explain it. There have been accounts since, since the 1600s of, seeing people there that are seemingly out of place, out of time. As recent as the 80s, there have been people that have seen people dressed in clothes from the Renaissance, and then talking about different kings and queens, and then they're gone. So there's it's very strange. I think that part of that natural magnetism or whatever there, that I think that there's a parallel reality that may be merging with our own. I think that that there's something there. Maybe it's the iron, maybe it's iron ore. I don't know what it is, but since it's the most naturally magnetic place on Earth, it would. I think that it's somehow drawing this parallel world into our world, and then not too terribly far away, you have CERN and what they're doing. And if you look at it like that, it's like CERN, they created the World Wide Web, the internet. So it's like, wow, could CERN be the programmers? Could they be the one running the show? And when we talk about in the beginning, it says, and God said, let us create man in our image. It didn't say my image, but in our image. And that word, and God said, is actually Hebrew for Elohim. That's what the word is. And that is feminine. Sorry, Catholic Church. Everything's masculine in the Catholic Church. It's Elohim is feminine, and it says, "Let us make man in our image." So it's like, that could be. I mean, it could be that CERN I mean, what if CERN was the ones who created everything? Just like I said, the church Turing thesis that was made public back in the 40s, the late 40s, early 50s, said that at the heart of every universe was a quantum computer. What is CERN and, all these, physicists and people in power, what are they racing towards? A quantum computer. And if this is a simulation, it would kind of be a rerun. And I know there's times when I feel like that this isn't my first time here, and maybe there's a reason for that. So, but Nostradamus, since you brought that up, Patricia, I happen to have some information right here. Nostradamus says, Nostradamus 8 verse 66 says, once the meaning of DM is found and the ancient cellar with the lamps is discovered, then the laws, the king, the prince, Vlapan will be tried, Pavilion of queen and duke undercover. Now, he says once the meaning of DM is found, there's a DM pyramid on Mars, and it's there's just it's a geometric wonder, and no one can explain it because it's perfectly made, and it's a 5-pointed star. It's a pentagon or pentagram, and it's called the DM pyramid. Now I don't know if that's got anything to do with Nostradamus, but it certainly has something to do with Rennes-le-Chateau and the surrounding area, which includes where Nostradamus was from. So, who knows? But yes, he was from a little town called Alais or Alet in very, very small town in France. But yes, he saw a lot of things, and was said to do his readings and everything from a bowl of water. I don't know what water has to do with the with seeing things to come, but one thing is it's just like time doesn't travel just one way. We often think it does, but it's like in Alice in Wonderland, and I forget who it was. One of the characters tells her, says basically, you can remember the future. Says, what good is time if it just moves in one way? So it's like there's no difference between the past or the future. And if that's true, then you can't explain it. The only way you can, or I should have said you can't explain it within our known laws. The only way you can explain it is if this is a simulation. Yeah, the Cheshire Cat. You say he was always super vague. Yes. And why is that? Because he was wanting Alice to see it for herself. Yeah. Wanting her to experience the truth for herself. Because, let's face it, if you don't experience it for yourself, you're not going to believe it. Because if this is the truth, I definitely want to experience it for myself, because I wouldn't believe it otherwise. If someone just told me without proof, without me experiencing it, no, I'm not going to believe it. But yeah, that's. But there's been many books that have been written like that, to pass on a secret, seemingly not making a lot out of it. It's like they don't really have much to say, but and not saying much, they're saying a lot. So it's just different ways of transmitting different information, and it's like it is all around us all the time. But you have to watch for it. You have to be on alert for these glitches that happen. And I don't know. It's like, when you see, when people say that they see a ghost, they see a shadow person or whatever. That would really explain a lot. It would explain. Well, a simulation would explain a lot of that. Would just be programs, just like the Matrix. The Oracle, she says, every time that a person says that they've seen a ghost or they've seen a werewolf or a vampire, she said that's programs doing what they're not supposed to do. They went rogue, and it's just amazing, because she's sitting there and she says, "Do you see those birds?" And it's all blackbirds. It's all blackbirds. It's all there is. And she says, "See that?" She said, "That's a program, And Neo starts looking around, and she says, there's programs everywhere. And like I said, when we started, Neo finds himself in this dojo, and he's out of breath. Well, what happens? What happened? Well, it's a message to us. If this is a simulation, it's like, you have more power than you can imagine. But as long as you are reminded, and as long as you are told that you have no power, if this is a simulation, then you accept it, and you're like, okay, when I run or when I exert myself, I breathe hard, I get tired. Okay, but if you were playing a game on the computer, and you were running or whatever, would you be breathing hard? Of course not. Well, apply that to yourself. If this is a simulation, would you be tired? Of course not. If you believe you are, then you are, and that's what it boils down to. And it's just it's really something, because it can either imprison us or it can set us free. It says, math makes up life. And man, is that true. I'm finding that out every day, more and more and more. Math makes up life. Numbers, equations. Man, it is just everywhere. Everything in the universe is quantifiable in some way. Even life is quantifiable. Now, I'll say that again. Even life is quantifiable. Despite medicine's long reputation as an inexact science, the Human Genome Project, which sequenced the chemical base pairs that make up human DNA, was solved using computers. All the secrets of the universe are solved using math. In fact, we can explain the universe better using math than we can with words. If everything is mathematical, everything could be broken down to binary code. So if computers and their data progress enough, could a functional human be created using the genome sequence inside a computer? And if you can build one being, wouldn't you build a whole world of them? Well, that's a point. Patricia, you say, I'm not entirely sure that's how lungs work, though. Yeah, right. When the little boy tells Neo, says, don't try and bend the spoon, only try to realize the truth. There is no spoon. Well, if you put it that way, as far as how the lungs work, wouldn't matter because there are no lungs. There's only lungs if you believe there are. If this is a simulation, I'm not saying that we don't have lungs. I'm just saying if this is a simulation, we only have, we don't even exist. I mean, in reality, we don't. And that's the conundrum. I mean, that's the wow factor of this, just even thinking about it, is we, like I read a story or something years ago, and was about something like this. This is a long time ago. And yeah, I know you, Patricia. You're hilarious. But they say, ask this, person, after he gives this big spiel about, how important he is and where he works and what he owns and how much money he has, and this this old, wise man, philosopher, he says, who told you even exist? And the guy's like, do what? What are you talking about? And he says, do you even know if you exist? And the guy's like, well, of course he says, who are you? He says, well, I'm a father. He says, no, I didn't ask you if you had children. Who are you? He says, well, I'm a banker. And he says, well, I didn't ask you where you worked. I didn't ask you what you did for a living. Who are you? Well, the guy didn't have any clue. Most people don't. Why is that? I mean, when you think about it, when you think about that, spiritually, that's the main message. Know thyself. Know yourself. Know who you are. Dig in. People are reaching for everything outside themselves because they see themselves as weak, and they see that they can grow by something outside of themselves. That's how they've been programmed. When you break that programming, that's how they've been programmed, literally. And if this is a simulation, it would be ultra literally, if that's even a term. If it's not, I just invented it. But yeah, you break that programming, and you dig in, the inside, you go inside, you don't find anything, you don't find strength, you don't find power, you don't find knowledge outside of yourself. You find everything inside. Just like Jesus said, he says, if someone tells you that I'm here or there, he says, don't go running there. He says, don't seek the kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven. He says, anywhere. He says, don't you know the kingdom of heaven is within you? Whoa. What does the world teach? Well, it's outside of you. Yeah, you have to do this, you have to do that. You have to jump through this hoop. You have to, follow this rule, which most are man-made rules anyway, when you think about it. Yeah. And if I was going to rule or to control a family, not a family, but the public, I guess you could say, world family tree, or the population. If I was going to control a population and make sure that they stayed in line somewhat, I would definitely put a lot of rules that I had made as if they were from God. I'm not saying that that's what the Bible is. I'm not saying that that's what the commandments are. But really, it's like Jesus said. He says, the two main things, love God above all else, and do unto others as you would have others do unto you. When you think about that, that pretty much takes care of every law, every rule. If people did that, the world would be a much better place. And it's pretty simple. But what's the problem? I think the problem is the programming. Jesus also said, he told of things that were going to happen. He told of Jerusalem being destroyed by Rome, and this is like 32, 33 AD, right before he was crucified and died. He foretold that. Didn't say when, but he said, this is going to happen. Well, 70 AD, it did happen. Titus came in and raised it. Just completely leveled it. There was not one stone left upon another, just like he said. Well, if that's if he was able to do that, how was he able to do it? People say, well, he was God in the flesh. He could see the future. Yeah, okay, that's one way of saying it. Could you say it another way by saying he knew it was a simulation? He had access to the code, so he could fast forward and, is that how Nostradamus, is that how Jesus, is that how the, prophets, is that how they foretold the future? They somehow knew the code, could just fast forward it, and okay, yep, this is what's going to happen. And people are like, wow, that's amazing. Jesus himself said, if when he saw Nathanael under the fig tree, it says that Jesus said, he said, here's an Israelite in whom there is no guile. And this guy Nathanael was like, I don't even know you. And Jesus is basically saying, well, I know you. Okay, well, how does that work? Well, if Nathaniel was a character, was an avatar, I'm just saying, I'm just putting this out there. Food for thought. If he was a character, an avatar, if all the disciples were characters in this simulation, then that's how Jesus would know them all. That's how he would choose them. He would know what they were going to do. And people say, oh, but what about Judas, Well, Jesus said, before Judas even betrayed him, he said, I have chosen all of you. He says, but one of you is a devil. One of you is going to betray me. And Peter said, is it me? Jesus said, no. He said, it's the one who has his hand in the dip bowl with mine. And Judas looked at him and he says, what you do quickly. Betraying him. And that brings me to the point where Jesus said, when he said, I'm going to go to Jerusalem, I'm going to die. They're going to beat me, they're going to torture me, they're going to execute me. And Peter says, no, they're not, because I'm not going to let you do it. And Jesus looked at Peter and said, Satan, get behind me. You have in mind the things of men. I have in mind the things of God. Get out of my way. Okay? Well, when you look at it like that, it's like Jesus came to destroy the power that the simulation had over people, or has over people. And he said not one jot or one tittle will be taken away from what has been written until everything has been fulfilled. Well, what has been written, it sounds like a computer code to me. It sounds like computer programming to me. Not one crossing of the T, not one dotting of the I will be left out until all has been fulfilled, until it's all been completed. Kind of like a screenplay. But anyway, scientists speculate that someone may have already done that and created our world. About if you can build one being, why not build a world of them? To determine whether we are living in a simulation, researchers are undertaking serious investigations by examining the math that makes up the universe. And why is it math? Because numbers do not lie. They either add up or they don't. So there's no question about it. Okay. Number 6, the anthropic principle. It's amazing that humans exist. For life to start on Earth, we needed everything to be just right. We're the perfect distance away from the sun. The atmosphere has the correct composition, and gravity is just powerful enough. And though there may be many other planets with those conditions, life gets even more impressive when you widen your perspective beyond Earth. If some cosmic factor like dark energy were even a little stronger, life probably wouldn't exist, either here or anywhere else in the universe. This principle asks why. Why did these conditions come about so perfectly for us? One explanation is that the conditions were deliberately set in place with the intention of giving us life. Every convenient factor was a fixed condition in some vast lab experiment. The factors were just plugged into the universe, and then the simulation was started. That's amazing. This led existence, and our individual planet evolved the way it has. A consequence of this is that those behind the simulation needn't be humans at all. Some other set of beings may be running it, and they choose to hide their presence from us. Perhaps alien life knows how to manipulate the computer program and can make themselves invisible to us. That's creepy. That is creepy. Because how many times have you felt a presence? I know I have. And it's not been a pleasant experience either. I mean, one of the worst experiences of my life. I mean, I never want to go through that again. And there's not much that really rattles me, but that one time, that was like probably 98, a long time ago, but it's still fresh in my mind. I never will forget it. Was like there was something invisible, kind of like the Predator movies or whatever. And man, I mean, it was just, it was the worst feeling I've ever felt in my life, and worse than death. I mean, it was like, man. And I'm thinking, what's going on? I mean, I can't see anything. I can just feel it, and it's crazy. And but a lot more about that. But anyway, 5 parallel universes. The theory of parallel worlds, or the multiverse, posits an infinite number of realities with an infinite number of possibilities within them. Picture the floors of an apartment building. Universes are part of the multiverse, much like floors are part of the building. They share a common layout, which is something that I've always said. I've always said this, from those of you that have listened to me, or talk to me about blueprints. As above, so below. As without, so within. It's like a reflection. But each is distinct, and they'll contain different things. Jorge Luis Borges likened the multiverse to a library. Within the library are an infinite number of books. Some differ just by a letter, while others are completely different stories. Now that's something that, D-Wave founder Geordie Rose was talking about. He said, he says there's endless realities. He says, parallel realities, parallel worlds, just like this one. But they're a little bit different. Each one just has a little bit, in one you leave home and you go a different way to work. In one, you stay home from work. In one, you don't even work. In another, maybe you die. I mean, every possibility, he said, is there. And he says, and we're going to, with the quantum computer, he says, we're going to reach into those other parallel worlds, and we're going to take information out and bring it into our world, into our dimension. Well, if that's true, which by all accounts it is, that's basically the definition of a program, of a simulation, of multiple simulations, many simulations, because he's not saying there's a chance that there are different worlds. There's a chance that there are different, that this is a possibility. He's saying, yeah, this is happening. And, just talking like it's just an everyday thing. So anyway, it says, the theory has all sorts of crazy implications for the meaning of life, but if there really are multiple universes, why did they come about, and why are there so many? If we're in a simulation, the multiple universes are multiple simulations running at once. Each simulation has its own set of variables, and this isn't random. The simulation's creator plugged in different variables to test different scenarios and observe different outcomes, just like the Matrix. In the second Matrix, it's Matrix Reloaded, Neo meets the Architect. The Architect. Now, remember that, the Architect, because the Masons, that's what they call God, is the great architect of the universe. Strange. Number 4, Fermi's paradox. Our planet is one of many with conditions that could support life, and our sun is quite young compared to others in the universe. You therefore might expect proof of life elsewhere, from planets where life runs parallel to ours, or from ones where life began eons earlier. Furthermore, humans have ventured into space, so shouldn't civilizations elsewhere have also tried space travel? With a billion other galaxies out there, some which are billions of years older than ours, wouldn't at least one have mastered space travel? Since Earth has the conditions for life, you'd even expect Earth to have been colonized by an advanced civilization at some point. Yet we have found no trace of any other form of intelligent life in the universe. The Fermi paradox can simply be summed up as, where is everybody? This ties back into simulation theory in a few different ways. If life should exist elsewhere, but only exist on Earth, that could be evidence that we're in a simulation. Those behind the simulation chose to simulate life nowhere else for simplicity, or to see how humans do alone. The multiverse theory says that there is indeed life on other planets in most universe simulations. Ours is simply the one simulation that puts us alone in the universe. Going back to the anthropic principle, it could be that this universe was created just for us. Another theory, the planetarium hypothesis, offers one more possible answer. The simulation made various populated planets each wrongly think themselves alone in the universe. Perhaps the simulation aims to test the effects of ego boosting on civilization. I have no idea. Number 3 is one that I really, it's a big one. God is a programmer. Wow. People have long exchanged ideas of a God as a designer of the world. Some imagine one particular God as a bearded man in the clouds, but simulation theory says that God, or any other, may instead be a bespectacled programmer hunched over a keyboard. As we've established, a programmer can create worlds out of simple binary. The only question then is why the programmer would encode within us the desire to worship our Creator, a key part of most religions. This could be intentional or unintentional. Perhaps the programmer wants us to know that he or she exists and wrote a code to give us an innate feeling of having been created. Maybe the programmer intended nothing of the sort, but we've intuited the Creator's existence nonetheless. The idea of God as a programmer even goes along with the idea of intelligent design in 2 different ways. The first is that the code started life, letting everything evolve within the simulator to where we are today. The second is that it might take literal creationism exactly right. Just like the Bible says, God created the whole world and life in 7 days. But he would have used a computer rather than cosmic powers. Which is, yeah, exactly. And it says, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was God. The Word was with God and was God. And every part of Genesis where it says, and God said, let there be, and it was. He created everything with the spoken word. Could it be, I don't know, could it be a keyboard? Interesting, fascinating to think about. Number 2, outside the universe. What's outside of our universe? With simulation theory, the answer would seem to be a supercomputer, surrounded by advanced beings, but an even crazier possibility exists. Those beings who run the simulation might be as fake as we are. That's what I'm talking about. The layer upon layer upon layer. How would you ever know that you're in the real world if there even is such a thing? Those beings who run this simulation might be as fake as we are. There may be multiple layers of simulation. As Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom suggests, the post-humans running around our simulation are themselves simulated beings, and their creators in turn may also be simulated beings. Here may be room for a larger number of levels of reality, and the number could be increasing over time. It's like you sat down to a game of The Sims and played it until your characters created a Sims game of their own. Their Sims in turn programmed and played their own game, while you are secretly part of an even larger simulation. This still leaves the question, what is outside the creator's real universe? It's an idea so far removed from our lives that it could be impossible to speculate on it. But if simulation theory can at least explain our universe's limited size and note what's immediately outside it, well, that's a good start in determining the nature of existence. Number 1, fake people make for easy simulations. Even if computers get vastly more powerful, the universe might seem much too complex to fit in one. Each of the 7 billion people currently alive is complex enough to rival any computer imaginable. And we're an infinite part of a vast universe which contains billions of galaxies besides ours. It would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to take into account that many variables. But a simulated world needn't be anywhere as complex as it seems. A convincing simulation would need just a few detailed key figures and then a great many barely sketched secondary players. Think of games like those in Grand Theft Auto series. They contain hundreds of people, but you only interact with a few. Life could be very much like that. You have yourself, you have your close family and friends, but everyone you pass on the street, they're not real. They have a few thoughts and no emotions. They're a little more than set dressing. Well, let's stick with the open world video game analogy for a bit. These games contain large worlds, but only your current location contains true action at any one time. Reality could run the same way. Areas out of sight could be stored in memory and are brought up only when needed, saving huge amounts of processing power. And what about distant areas that you'll never visit, such as all those other galaxies? The simulation never needs to run those areas at all. It just needs to display convincing images when you try to view them. But never mind the people on the street or distant stars. You don't even have proof that you exist. This is what I was saying earlier. At least the person you imagine. We think the past has happened because we have memories and because of records like photos and books. But what if all that is just freshly written code? What if your life was turned on last time you blinked your eyes? Exactly. What if every morning when you wake up, it's a new code. A new code's been written. Would you know it? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't be aware of it at all. The disturbing thing is that this is impossible to prove or disprove. And that's why that they're paying, that's why they're spending so much money. That's why it's taking billionaires to try to come up with a way that they can tell or whatever. I think that if they do, that it will be that the truth will be found in numbers, mathematically. Reality is best understood to be a simulation. A human can be understood using the metaphor of an eye that stares at a screen composed of a number of pixels. Those pixels can modulate to create the images that we perceive and the sensations that we feel. This collective modulation of pixels creates waves of disturbance that we recognize as objects. These objects are not objects per se, but are waves in a medium of the field of pixels. Imagine that you are a baseball player looking at the fans in their seats doing the wave. You perceive the individual fans, but you also see a distinct wave moving through them. This is like a whirlpool that forms in a river. The whirlpool is the distinct structure within the water of a river, but is not separate from the river. It is merely a configuration of the medium of the river. When one stares at a television with a movie playing on it, the pixels are in effect collapsing into either red, green, or blue. Modern physicists mistakenly believe that there is a distinction between perceiver and objects in reality. But this is an illusion. There is the underlying screen of reality, but it is a lower dimensional project that imitates higher dimensions of reality. There are objects in that we are humans and we need to eat and drink to survive. But this is like a video game. It is not real reality. The simulation is teleological in that we are trapped in this simulation in order to learn some truth or grow into some new form. Does that sound familiar? We're here to learn. This is just a test. We are like plants in a greenhouse. A greenhouse is not a real atmosphere. It is a simulated atmosphere. Once we grow into a form that we can live in the real atmosphere, we will be planted in that atmosphere. New humans are planted into our simulation every day, but we do not know how long a human has been in the simulation. Some humans are older and more developed than other humans because they have been through more trials than other humans. Eventually, when spiritual attainment has been achieved, you exit the simulation and go live in a higher plane of existence, which is really just outside of the data center that you are in at present. Kind of like Geordie Rose is talking about. One day we will be able to create our own simulation, and we will be able to mature our young people in this simulation just as we are matured in the macrocosmic simulation. The issue of evil is really just beings who are new to the simulation. As beings progress through the simulation, they gradually become less evil. I don't necessarily agree with all of this. I'm just reading it. Death within the simulation is not really death, but as in a video game, it is just a reset. If you die in a video game, you do not gnash your teeth and moan at the horror of it because you know that it's not real. In this way, reality is not real, and when you die, you either exit the simulation or just reset in a new form with new challenges. Our bodies are like remote-controlled drones. We must care for them, and as they are the conduit and eyes into this world, we exist remotely, but we are dependent on these bodies to live here. There are gods in this simulation, but they are merely system administrators. Their job is to ensure that you are progressing and growing along certain guidelines. They are like gardeners in the greenhouse. We know that if you want a plant to grow better, it needs to be trimmed occasionally. When one goes through struggle, it is merely a trimming of your branches so that you will grow better. The gods are best to be thought of as athletic coaches. When one goes to the gym and is coached by a personal trainer, the job of the coach is to stress you and make you uncomfortable in order that you grow better. In this way, the gods stress you through forces in reality to ensure that you mature. So, a lot to think about. And a few years ago, it would be very strange to even consider it, but now it's not so strange. Definitely not. It's something that is quite feasible with modern technology and the way that things are growing by leaps and bounds. I don't know. Makes sense. But anyway, we've hit the 2-hour mark and going to call it a night here from Texas. If you have any questions or comments, or would like to present some topics that you would like to discuss, feel free to email me at thetexorcistpodcast@gmail.com. Love and light to you all. Love you all. See you next time.